Welcome back. We're joined by a very special guest, Jagannathan Thunuguntala, Equity Head at SMC Capitals, who's joining us from Delhi. Jagan, good afternoon. Thanks for joining in. Talk about your assessment of the markets. Clearly, Nifty has taken out 5,200. We all know that last week was pretty volatile on the back of concerns on Euro, and we haven't really seen any major news flow from Eurozone over the last 2 days. It's just a case of no news being good news. How are you interpreting these moves into the market? Do you expect this momentum to be sustainable, or are we going to remain in a sideways kind of a trend? Perhaps 5,200 could be a peak. We could actually correct from here on.
You have summarized it very well, Ashu. It's no news is a good news, and we are living in that kind of scenario. And if going forward, if there is no news, we may continue this momentum, but that scenario is appearing very unlikely because it just some other news flow is just waiting to happen. But definitely, last 2-3 days have been fantastic. No question, no complaints, because even the volume front, even the overall momentum and wide participation, it's quite looking promising. But having said that, it is better to use these rallies to book profits, especially in the case of telecom sector. All of us understand the kind of problems that the industry is going through, and the overcapacity and revenue squeezing and margin squeezing. So it may not very logical and rational. If somebody wants to chase this rally and momentum, it's better to book as much profits as possible in the sector. One more player, 15 player, 16 player, people are kept on coming in telecom. All of us understand the potential of India, but having said that, it should be, even the expansion should be logical and profitable and sensible. As it is standing today, it is not appearing to be. I think use every bounce to book as much profit as possible in the telecom.
All right. Just want to also flag off Reliance Communication, saying that they are going to approve the restructuring of Reliance Infratel and perhaps looking at alliances with BWA players. Jagan, what is your reading on the telecom space? How did you make out of the foray of Reliance into telecom all over again? The last time the company made this jump, it altogether changed the way telecom in India actually happened. And do you think with the move into BWA, there could be a huge amount of change in the way this industry works? And even telecom, it's also to be much more difficult for incumbents to fight it out.
I think one thing is sure, Ashu, in 2 years from now, as we are standing today, the telecom in India is going to change upside down. I mean, the number of players, the kind of players, I'm sure there will be a lot of takeovers, no doubt about it. Of course, it has been often predicted, but it is just waiting to happen. But I think now we are reaching a final stage. I think the end game is around the corner. I think we'll be about to witness. I think Reliance Communications take sale or Reliance Industries entering, I think all suggesting that there may be an impending and eventual integration between both the groups of Reliance. And if that happens, that Reliance group will be the most dominating factor when that eventual shake-up happens in the telecom industry. They may be a dominant player who will be taking over some of the other players and to buy some market share and some licenses and etc. etc. I think Reliance has entered at very opportunistic stage where remaining players have run out of their resources, have run out of their enthusiasm, just paving the way for Reliance to make big bang entry. I think Reliance is placing itself in a beautiful fashion. 2 years from now, telecom, the kind of players we'll be seeing is altogether different. No question about that.
All right. Talk about what's your assessment on the IT space. All of a sudden, we are seeing a lot of attention on this space. The management at Infosys commented about maintaining margins earlier in the day, but basically on the ground, has anything changed over the last couple of days, or is the industry just looking a little better, given the fact that the concerns on Euro still on? Nothing hasn't really changed as far as pricing is concerned. Deal flow remains intact. The case of HCL. What's your assessment on the IT space?
It is a blessing in disguise, because what's happening is the dollar outflow or the money going out of countries putting pressure on the rupee, and rupee weakening means blessing to the IT companies for expansion of their margins, profit margins. So that is a blessing in disguise. Of course, there may be some pressure on the volumes because of international pressures, but rupee depreciating is a major advantage. And also one more thing is 2008 crisis. IT sector has done fantastic fantastically well. They have at least stayed themselves above the water. I think their performance has been quite inspiring even in 2008 crisis. There is no reason why not to believe that 2010 also they can handle it fairly well. And IT industry anyway is a great inspiration story from India. I think all net put together they have been doing well. I think IT industry can come quite strong. But international concerns, I don't think they have been addressed, and they will be addressed anytime soon. But the ability lies, as they say, crisis is the litmus test of the character. While crisis is on, your character will get displayed. And now that testing time for the IT companies and Indian IT as a whole is displaying its character fantastically.
All right. Talk about the liquidity squeeze. Is a lot of concern on the fact that the recent 3G BWA auctions could actually put tremendous amount of pressure on the liquidity situation. And recently we saw the Finance Secretary, as a matter of fact, Finance Secretary today has commented that the RBI could take some kind of action to perhaps try and address this liquidity issue. Do you think there could be some knee-jerk reaction for a shorter term? We could see some kind of a tinkering on the SLR front?
Yeah, $25–30 billion is not a small amount. It's a lot of money for sure. Understandably, this is happening. On top of that, now even advance tax payment days are around the corner. So net put together, there can be some pressure on the liquidity. But it is not unmanageable problem. This is a known devil. So I'm sure RBI would have made a sufficient arrangement to address this problem, because at the time of some stages of economy, there will be unknown devils. There will be some known devils. I think this is one such case of category of known devils. I think it's manageable issue. There may be some problem, but I don't see there will be much panic because of liquidity. But having said that, any international news flow which will happen just a matter of time, and then probably this lack of liquidity can also put some pressure. But lack of liquidity standalone may not be the triggering point of all. I don't think so.
Okay, and as far as let's stick to the inflation numbers that actually came out firmly in the double-digit side. Do you think inflation also, to an extent, perhaps act as a bit of a deterrent, or perhaps is also a key concern for the RBI before it can actually start raising rates in a jiffy? Do you think liquidity on one side and the rising inflation on the other side actually are offsetting each other, so not really giving RBI enough headroom to make any significant changes on the interest rate side?
Its 10% figure is a quite interesting number, Ashu. For example, if you closely see, the Chinese growth rate is 10%, US unemployment rate is 10%, India's inflation rate is 10%. Because in fact, all the three countries are more or less interrelated, at least from the numeric angle is concerned. I mean, this 10% is quite concerning. I think RBI may sounding it is slightly behind the curve in terms of policy decision making. I think eventually they have to take a major decision about that, because one should not let inflation problem run out of control, because otherwise the growth has no meaning with high inflation. Because for example, if you see China, I mean, of course even their inflation is going up, but their inflation is 3% on top of 12% growth rate. So 12% growth, 3% inflation still makes sense when compared to 10% growth and 9% growth in India and 10% inflation. So that is not very exciting proposition. So inflation is a bookworm. It will keep eating into your wealth unless you control it properly. I think as it is standing today, RBI is sounding slightly behind the curve. I think they have to step up their aggression in terms of policy stance.
Jagannatham, it's always a pleasure getting your thoughts across on Profit, and as always, thanks for joining us on the discussion on what to expect from the markets. There, Jagannatham of SMC commenting about the markets and some of the other important factors, from the liquidity squeeze towards the outlook for the telecom space here in India. That's a wrap on this edition of Tips for Tomorrow. Stay tuned, the programming continues here on NDTV Profit.